February 1945. The Philippines. A small group of 120 American Rangers stares into the darkness of the jungle. They know what's coming. Over 1,000 Japanese soldiers, hardened by years of brutal warfare, are closing in from every direction. But instead of retreating, these Rangers let themselves be surrounded. And what happened next would shock even their commanders. 500 Japanese soldiers wiped out in just 30 minutes. This is the untold story of one of the most daring and ruthless small unit actions in World War II, where courage, deception, and precision turned certain death into devastating victory.
In early 1945, the Philippines was burning. General Douglas MacArthur had returned as promised, and the U.S. Army was pushing hard to liberate Luzon, the largest and most heavily defended island in the archipelago. But behind enemy lines, thousands of Allied prisoners still suffered in brutal Japanese camps. One of those camps, at Cabanatuan, held hundreds of survivors from the Bataan Death March. To rescue them, a small elite unit was chosen, the 6th Ranger Battalion. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were hand-picked, fast-moving, and trained for lightning raids. But this mission was unlike anything they'd faced. The plan was simple on paper, but suicidal in practice. Infiltrate deep behind enemy lines, reach the POW camp, rescue over 500 prisoners, and somehow get them all out alive. To make it worse, over thousands of Japanese troops were stationed all around the area, including a division nearby. Led by Lieutenant Colonel Henry Mucci and Captain Robert Prince, the Rangers set out on foot, moving silently through rice paddies and thick jungle. Every sound could mean death. Local Filipino guerrillas helped guide them through the terrain, feeding them intelligence and watching Japanese patrols. But there was a bigger problem. The Rangers soon learned that a large Japanese relief force of around 500 men was moving through the area. The Rangers couldn't avoid them, so they made a bold decision. Instead of hiding, they would lure the enemy in. The Rangers picked a small patch of jungle near the Bataan River, dense enough to conceal their movements, but open enough for gunfire to tear through. They knew the Japanese loved night assaults, relying on infiltration and surprise. Mucci and Prince split their 120 men into small squads, setting up overlapping fields of fire. Machine guns were dug in low, rifles sighted along narrow lanes between trees. Mines and grenades were placed with mathematical precision. And then they waited. For hours, the jungle was silent, just the buzz of insects and the distant croak of frogs. Then came the faint rustle of boots and the glint of bayonets in the moonlight. 1,000 Japanese soldiers, unaware they were walking straight into a killing ground. But the Rangers didn't fire, not yet. Prince whispered the order, "Hold, wait for the signal." The Japanese commander, thinking the area was empty, ordered his men to advance, tight formations, perfect for the Rangers' ambush. Then came the signal, a flare shot high into the sky. In an instant, the jungle exploded. 30 caliber machine guns roared to life. Tracers ripped through the darkness. The first Japanese wave never made it 10 steps. Within minutes, chaos engulfed the enemy ranks. The Rangers' overlapping fire created a deadly crossfire, a geometric storm of bullets. Japanese soldiers tried to charge, screaming banzai into the night, but every charge was cut down by precise bursts. The Rangers had baited the trap perfectly.
For 30 brutal minutes, the jungle turned into a nightmare. The Rangers' fire discipline was near perfect. Every squad moved like clockwork. Reload, reposition, fire. Grenades sailed into clusters of Japanese troops, detonating with horrifying effect. When a Japanese platoon tried to flank from the east, a Ranger sniper team picked them off one by one before they even reached the trees. The noise was deafening: gunfire, screams, the echo of grenades. But amid the chaos, Rangers communicated through short, calm bursts: left side clear, reloading, hold your fire. Their training showed. Each man fought like 10. By the 20th minute, the jungle floor was covered with Japanese bodies. Yet still, some enemy soldiers kept charging, driven by blind loyalty and desperation. They rushed into the Rangers' fire, only to be met by bayonets and shotguns. Captain Prince later recalled, "They just kept coming. It was like shooting into a wave, but the wave never stopped." When the smoke finally began to settle, over 500 Japanese soldiers lay dead or dying. The rest scattered into the darkness, leaving behind weapons, helmets, and shattered morale. The Rangers had not only survived, they had annihilated an entire force more than 8 times their size.
When morning came, the full scale of the destruction was visible. The jungle was littered with fallen men, rifles, and the smell of gunpowder. The Rangers gathered ammunition, checked for wounded, and quietly moved on. They knew this was just one battle in a larger mission, the Cabanatuan raid, which went on to become one of the most successful special operations of the Pacific War. When news of the ambush reached headquarters, officers refused to believe it at first. How could 120 Rangers possibly destroy a Japanese force of 1,000 men? But when scouts confirmed the kill count, Muchi's men became legends overnight. The Rangers' ambush didn't just save their own lives, it prevented that Japanese column from reinforcing the Cabanatuan POW camp. Without that stand, hundreds of Allied prisoners might have been executed. That night, the Rangers completed their mission, storming the camp, rescuing over 500 prisoners, and leading them through 30 miles of enemy territory to freedom.
The Cabanatuan raid and the deadly ambush that made it possible remains a textbook example of small unit tactics, courage, and discipline under impossible odds. The 6th Ranger Battalion stand became legend in U.S. Army history, studied in Ranger School and modern Special Forces training for decades. Every move, from how they used terrain and concealment to their controlled fire and coordination, was proof that superior tactics can defeat overwhelming numbers. Many of the men involved went on to fight in other operations, but they never forgot that night in the jungle. Years later, one veteran said, "We didn't think about dying. We just thought about doing our job right, and that's why we made it out." The ambush showed the world what American Rangers were capable of, not just strength, but precision, teamwork, and unshakable willpower. Even today, the legacy of that battle echoes in every Ranger motto: Rangers lead the way.
In the jungles of Luzon, 120 men faced 1,001, not through luck, but through skill, unity, and courage. They didn't just fight to survive, they fought so others could live. And in doing so, they proved that sometimes the smallest group of men can shape the course of history.